Hey, Nick here back with a third behind the scenes video for my upcoming animation, The Road Trip. That's right, we made it to 3. I haven't gotten bored yet, I'm still going. Hopefully we continue. Today we're going over some less animated props, but let's see if I can make it interesting. It'll be a real test of something. I don't know what it's a test for, but it's a test. To start things off, I actually made a notepad with the things that I want to get done in this video. The past 2 videos, we've only done 3 or 4 props, but this one, I think that I counted that and it was like 7. I don't remember what it is. It doesn't look like 7. Maybe it was 11. I think 11's the number. That sounds much more accurate. So yeah, we're gonna blitz through these 11 props today. It's gonna be wonderful. To start things off, we have 5 Monopoly pieces for 5 people. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know more than maybe like 2 or 3 Monopoly pieces, and they probably wouldn't look very good if they're just coming on the top of my head. So what I did is I went to Google, searched up Monopoly pieces, and I found a whole bunch of Monopoly pieces. It says right here, vote on your favorite Monopoly piece now. It's a gaming trend. Let me know what your favorite Monopoly piece is. I'll go first. Mine's Battleship. Or maybe it's not. To be honest, I don't really remember. Maybe after I model all these, I'll have a new favorite. I'll let you know then. So yeah, then I got started modeling, and this is a great example of where you have to decide how much detail you're actually going to put into something. So right here, these Monopoly pieces are going to be really small, and they ended up being actually incredibly small, and I had to scale them up a little bit bigger than they would normally be relative to the Monopoly board. But since they're really small, you shouldn't put too much geometry into them. So not only the fact that they are already supposed to be low poly, but they're also a very minor piece of the animation. So you only want to put like maybe 50 or so faces into each one. Finally, after the modeling was all done, I just went and slapped on a quick metal shader onto the pieces, and off I went. So next up were the chance and community chest cards. For those, I went back on Google, found a chance card and found a community chest card, and then I brought it into Krita and I downscaled them, and then I pixelated them, and to finish them up I brought them into Blender as images as planes, added a solidify modifier so that they are a little bit more substantial, and called it a day. Then we had the list of things to do in Florida. Now my strategy for this one was to go on Google and search for a grocery list, actually, because I just wanted a piece of paper with some writing on it, but not too much writing, and grocery lists usually qualifies for that sort of thing. So I found a grocery list, downloaded it, brought it back into Krita, downscaled it and pixelated it like usual, and then I actually took the map rig, got rid of the ripping functionality of it, and changed the texture so that it was using the new pixelated grocery map texture, and then finally changed the shape of the paper. And there we go, all set. All I had to do was use something that I already spent a ton of time on and use it for something new, and now I have 2 for the price of 1. Then I did the notepad. I went on Google, found a piece of lined paper, downloaded that, went through, downscaled it, pixelized it, and then I went into Blender and I quickly modeled up a notepad. I didn't do one with rings because there's no reason to do that when I can just do one with the black thing on the top to hold the paper in. And then I UV unwrapped it and put the new lined paper right on top, and I was done. Thinking about dice, the most simple way I was going to get that done was going to be just to go online, find an already unwrapped dice image, download that, and then bring it into Blender after pixelating it, and then just cutting pieces out of it and wrapping it around a cube to get my dice model and texture all done. After I did that, I just went ahead and did a quick physics simulation, which turned out to be not so quick because I had to mess around with a bunch of settings that were all out of whack. But eventually we got there to get this, so that was pretty good. Next I did the pencil, which in and of itself shouldn't have been very complicated until I got a little sidetracked and got it in my head that I wanted to mess around with the lighting. So I started out with the normal black background, which I was like, oh, this is feeling a little old. We gotta change it up and make it more interesting. And I'm doing all these test renders and animations. I should be really dialing in the look of the lighting for the whole animation so that when we get to the final product, it looks good and I don't have to mess around with it then. So I went and changed it to like a sky texture with the same lighting, which was not very good. Then I actually went and got an HDRI to use for reflections and actual lighting, and to attempt to use the sky texture as just the image in the background. At first this looks pretty good, and it seems like it's working great. It is very odd, however, that the pencil was looking really shiny when it really should not have been. So me being me, I said, oh, it's fine. We can fix that later if it's an issue. And I went on to the gas can, which I did a quick model and texture, nothing special there, until I tried to do the first render to see how it looked, and I noticed it was looking really funky. It was looking very splotchy, for no better word for it. So I did a couple more. It kept looking splotchy. So then I was like, okay, this is really weird. This wasn't happening before. So I went and started trying to do a render of the biggest thing I've done so far, which was the van, and that wasn't looking very good either. That was also looking kind of splotchy. So I was like, okay, so maybe if I turn up the samples, it'll look better, which it did, but it also brought the render times way up. So now I have to go and look around in the world shader to see what was wrong, and turns out I was using the HDRI only for the lighting when it was reflections. I was supposed to use it when it was not the camera ray. Now these are two different things because I have a lot fewer reflections than just the colors, which is why the colors would be dull, but then it would be brighter because the HDRI is brighter and has more shadows and things, and the reflections were brighter, and then the denoiser was taking those little dots and trying to figure out what was going on, and it turned it into a bunch of splotches, which does look better than a bunch of spots, but put into an animation it would not look good. It would look like it's just constantly shifting and changing. It would be consistent and all. It would look a lot like if I tried to draw it every frame. So yeah, when we got that all figured out, I went into the gas can render, and then I moved on to the Monopoly money blanket. Doing that, I actually ran into quite a few issues. The first problem was, how am I going to actually stitch together all these Monopoly dollars so that they're in a random order and they're in the shape of a blanket without just manually going one by one and connecting up all the vertices, which would take a really long time and probably not look that great because I did it by hand. My first instinct was to go with geometry nodes and take each object from the collection and try and put them all together, but then when I went to realize instances so I could apply the cloth simulation after, I remembered that geometry nodes does not preserve UVs, and so when I did that, every single dollar would turn into one color that was the right color but didn't have the actual image on it anymore, so I couldn't use that. Then I was like, okay, maybe I can use some like array modifiers or something. That did not work out either. So then I went back to the geometry nodes. I used that anyway to generate the grid, and then I unwrapped the grid so that now I know it's all in the right aspect ratios so that the Monopoly money can actually fit into it properly. Then I went to the shader editor so I would redo the shaders so that the textures would actually match up. Even geometry nodes ruined the UVs. I was going to fix them. And so I worked out some math, got all that to work, and I got the images to work. And then looking at it, I was like, okay, this is what I wanted. I have the cloth sim on it now and everything, and it looks like exactly what I wanted, but then I realized that's not really what I wanted because it looks way too uniform. If you have a bunch of paper dollars, especially Monopoly money, they're just like little flimsy pieces of paper. There's no way you're going to get them to stick together like that so that they form a blanket. Like, that's ridiculous. That doesn't look at all good. I can't use that. So I was like, okay, well, maybe if I go and instance some more paper right on top of it, I'll put some more dollars on top of it and it'll make it look less uniform and more like frazzled. I don't know what the word is, but I'm going to say frazzled, like rugged, ripped, shredded, something like that. And so I went and did that, but I couldn't get the money to actually rotate properly. So I actually went and got rid of that whole geometry node setup, and I went to particle systems, and I had a whole lot of trouble trying to get it to rotate properly. They rotate like one way and then the other, and it was never the correct way. They're always like sticking out. They didn't look like they were like I wanted them to look. And eventually I just ended up rotating the objects that were being instanced onto the quilt until I got it to looking something like this. So then I said, okay, let's try the cloth simulation now. And that was interesting. I had like pieces falling, like first of all, everything fell off because I just joined all the geometry together, but they weren't actually connected to the cloth, and so they just fell off because there's not being pinned to anything. So then I went and I selected everything, and then I merged by distance, and some of them are merging to it. And now most of things are falling off, but some things are sticking. And I was like, that's an interesting look. Why don't I go into more of that and see what I can get? So I kept going, and then I eventually did the cloth simulation. I baked it out, I rendered it, I looked at it, and I had this one render right here, and it looks way too flat. So then I went and enabled self collisions so it would look more full and things would intersect each other less. And so I did that, and I was like, okay, I could use this can work. And then I went and did a quick render of the whole animation. So it wasn't actually quick, but we're gonna call it a quick render. And the entire blanket's just all jittery because everything's too close together. They start inside each other. Like, Blender isn't like that. You can't have things like that. Other than that, it looked good though. So what I ended up doing is I went and I actually continued merging by distance until everything was like way out of whack. Like, it's really hard to tell from the animation because I mean you have to really look at each frame to find the issues, but things are gonna be stretching, weird things are gonna be merging together, and they're definitely not gonna be rectangles anymore, but they have the textures on them still. They're just all stretched out and weird in places. But you can't tell because there's so many of them. But if you look real closely, you can see it. And so that's my final Monopoly blanket. Moving on, I have to put together a quick butterfly. Doing the actual modeling is fairly straightforward, and I just went and put it together. I used a couple of reference images to make sure I have the right shapes, the wings point in the right directions, and that it looks like a butterfly, right? And then one interesting decision I made with the actual texturing was I went UV unwrapped it and put the texture on like usual. But I was like, well, butterflies usually have pretty thin wings. Right here, I don't have the wings so thin. So why don't I make it like translucent and maybe even transparent depending on how you look at it. And so if you actually look really closely at the animation, I actually haven't seen the animation yet, so I don't know how closely you have to look, but you will be able to see through the butterfly's wings at certain points. And other than that, the light will also go through it in the other points. So that'll be really cool. But yeah, then after the texturing, I went and rigged it, and that worked out great. And I put the entire butterfly together. It took me less than an hour, and we moved on to a whole bunch of sticks so that I can put in a bundle. I actually went back and forth quite a bit with this one. At first I was like, whoa, geometry nose, this is gonna be so cool. And then I was like, wait, I only need to make a few sticks. I don't need to use geometry nose, I can just model them. But then I was like, but wait, I could do more than just a few sticks. I could make infinitely many sticks. Think how cool that would be. I can put them everywhere. They're gonna be all over the place, and they'll be all unique. So then I went and started using geometry nodes to make it, and didn't work out so great. And I was trying to make it work, and I was like, this is taking significantly longer than it should. So then I went back to modeling because I was like, well, what if I just make like 5 sticks of each type, and then I put them everywhere and nobody will notice. And so that's what I did. I went and modeled one little stick, and then I made a little branch, and then I made a bigger branch, and then I made some logs, and then I duplicated them all and I retextured them. And now we have this huge thing with all these sticks, and putting these on the side of the road, you guys aren't gonna notice. There's no way. So what you gonna do about it? And that's a wrap on episode 3. If you guys haven't noticed, I've been trying to do an update on every going into Saturday. That time in between Friday and Saturday, 12 p.m., 12 a.m. I think it's 12 a.m. It's at midnight between Friday and Saturday. I'm trying to do an update every week at that time. And I'm also thinking about maybe doing like a little short Wednesday tutorial. Let me know what you guys think about that. That could be cool. I think I'm calling them lazy animations, which are kind of inspired off of Ian Hubert's lazy tutorial, but I'm switching it up to give my own spin on it because no copycats here. We don't do that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.